Thank you, Volker. The another lady behind over there, please. This is the last question, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Mikako Awano from WW Japan, and my question is to Mr. Olsen. But my question is really connected to the comment from Mr. Shrestha, because you mentioned about the funding challenge for supporting the work. This is, in a sense, about sustainability of the institution for sustainable development. In your research or in your suggestion or proposals, do you address to the cost aspect of that kind of institution? Because, well, probably you mentioned a little bit about it in your presentation, but the slide is quickly, so I couldn't catch very well. And even here in Japan, for instance, the party in power now decreased the total number of government officials. And quite often in the municipality level, there's only one, well, in the good case, there's only one dedicated officer to handle environmental issue, and quite often no dedicated officer. So it's quite a heavy task for them to, for instance, report their evaluation and monitor on the sustainable development goals related activities. So how do you address to that kind of cost aspect of an institution in your research and in your proposal?
Thank you for raising this question. Now I would like to close the list of questions. Let me ask the panelists to respond. Since the couple of questions is directed to Simon, and let me ask Simon first, and followed by Tomoko Nishimoto, the Dr. John Montip, and Surendra, and after that, let me ask the Mark to have the reaction. First, Simon, you have the floor, please.
Hello. Thank you very much, Volker, for your comment. Point is well taken. Yeah, willingness to pay or other. I mean, non-monetary terms, or things such as leisure or recreational aspects that can be valued should be taken into account, and that's something that I fully agree with you on. On the other question is a little bit more difficult for me to answer. Perhaps that's why I skipped the slide so quickly. But I would ask any of my other fellow panelists with much more experience than I to perhaps contribute also with their personal view on how limited capacity or limited funding can be bridged on subnational and local levels. But an intuitive answer is that also goes through in many of my presentations, and also in other people saying that, governance is not just about governments and governmental departments. Governance, as you know, I mean, you nod, so you agree, is also about the role of partnerships and other stakeholders and what responsibilities they may have. So it's kind of normative, and of course, this presumes a level of capacity and awareness among civil society and also the private sector. But for example, mandatory sustainability reporting about from private sector activities on the ground, that's one example of how this role can be dispersed to not only be limited to governments.
Thank you, Simon, for such a tactical response. By the way, that's all right. Let me ask the Tomoko-san, please.
Thank you very much. I would like to have just 2 points, very quick points. The first point may be in direct response to the question of how do we convince the resource-rich countries for green economy. But having heard a very impressive green economy effort and an effort to strengthen the environmental governance within the country from Thailand and Korea, I would like to emphasize that, while we failed at the global level to set the targets and the time frame and so on, at the country level, national level, there is a tremendous move to set their own target, just like we heard from Thailand and so on, in many areas towards inclusive green economy and the poverty reduction. And this is including the countries that, for example, the Aruba countries from the Latin America, which were very openly opposing the concept and establishing a global framework and agreement for green economy. And then you look at the country effort, and even towards UNEP, they request assistance to really address the many aspects of green economy, such as resource efficiency, protected area, and so on. And in fact, we were just smiling, and even after Rio, after the very strong negotiation and opposing, one of the countries sent a request. Of course, the negotiation, as we heard, is done by Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then such a request comes from the Ministry of Environment. But the very same country asked for the assistance from UNEP to address those alternative energies, resource efficiency, and so on. So we should not underestimate the dynamics that are happening at the country level, and particularly pushed by the private sector forces. And a lot of strategic thinking is going on at the national level, and they know if they don't go towards that, they will be losing at the global market, a share and so on. And fail to address the poverty issues and inclusive issues that is also very much becoming a national issue, including the job creation. So I think related to that, also the resource-rich countries, such as oil-producing countries in the Middle East, as well as the Central Asia, we do have a lot of new movement going on. For example, I think it's no longer 1 month ago that Solar Energy Center was established in Saudi Arabia. In December last year, that Eye on Earth, which is basically the keeping an eye on the environment, state of environment, was hosted by United Emirates in Dubai, and this is going to be a semi-annual or biannual, every other year event, and quite a lot of resources are flowing in to make sure the special initiative agreed upon under the conference will get it going. So I think it is very important to not to overlook that kind of thing. The one quick also second point is the incentive. We have heard, how do we make sure that agencies for national development strategy in general, or agencies who are working on the social dimension, agencies working for environmental dimension, or economic dimension, how do we work together so that actual integrated policy will be in place and implemented with a strong science institutions behind. One thing it is happening is information sharing, and I do agree that there can be a lot more. Cooperation, the spirit of cooperation is increasing, but one thing we lack is incentive. For example, UNEP and UNDP taken together, we were encouraged a lot, but within the resources very scarce, and there is a resources that is for the work that can be done by UNEP and the UNDP. Of course, UNEP staff member will not be commended if you let that resources go to UNDP. The maximum would be the joint programming. So in terms of the resource mobilization getting together, I think it has to be the UN particularly, but in any other governmental organization, that there has to be a system of giving the incentive, rewarding that actual reward, not just encouraging them and so on. Actual reward has to be incorporated into the environmental governance system, or the governance mechanism for the sustainable development. And then we see a little of that still. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Nishimoto.